It may appear calm, but a storm is brewing at Port Stephens. The reason? Well, it's a numbers game. Lemon Tree Passage businessman Ray McCabe was selling diesel fuel at the Bowser today for a staggering 29 cents cheaper than nearby Nelson Bay's Dalbora Marina. And boat owners are making the trip upstream to take advantage.
It's the best way to protest, isn't it? Like, as I said, they've had the opportunity to drop the prices, they haven't done so, and these boats are taking 4,000 to 5,000 litres of fuel. It's a good saving.
But the inconvenience of a 2-hour round trip for the discount fuel may yet spell economic disaster. In a typical day's competition, a large game fishing rig can burn in excess of 1,000 litres of fuel. With that in mind, the exorbitant fuel prices here in Port Stephens has angered the New South Wales Game Fishing Association. It's even considered basing future tournaments in other areas, taking a potential $6 million away from businesses throughout the bay.
This time of year, they spend a lot of money in the community here. They're good for my business and obviously the other businesses in our marina.
A public meeting will be held at the Tanilba Bay Golf Club on Tuesday night at 7:30. Stephen Mount, NBN News. The pilot ran into difficulty around 3:30 this afternoon when it's believed his hang glider became unsettled in an updraft off Newcastle's Susan Gilmore Beach. The 65-year-old pilot and his glider were soon perched precariously on the side of a cliff, left hanging by nothing else than a strong nor'easter, nailing the wing against the rocks. An ambulance rescue unit managed to hand-winch the man to safety. He was treated at the scene. His only injuries are graze on his knee, requiring 4 band-aids. With the pilot back on solid ground, the glider's salvage was treated as an opportunity for rescue crews to stage a recovery exercise. With some of September 11's heroes touring Australia, it's a timely reminder of the work Newcastle rescue crews carry out on a daily basis. Yesterday was an example of just what lengths ambulance rescue goes to. A hang glider on the side of a cliff, pinned by a steady nor'easter with nothing but daylight for 70 metres below him. But to them, it's all in a day's work.
We always remember the main principle of our job is to rescue the patients, stabilise them and get them to hospital as soon as we can.
Thankfully, that wasn't yesterday's outcome, and the only thing damaged was the pilot's pride.
And we all worked as a very cohesive team and got a very successful outcome to what was potentially a very nasty situation.
Rescues such as yesterday's hang glider accident require a great amount of skill and effort, but the modest officers refuse to accept they're doing anything extraordinary.
No, we're all pretty much ordinary people, ordinary fellas and blokes, women that are in the job as well. The jobs we do, we're trained to do, and we just do it on a day-to-day basis.
And what about after the day's work is done?
Well, I think it's nice to have a beer or a wine, but it's also nice to have it in moderation. So remembering that tomorrow is going to be another day and we're going to do it all again.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Well, good to be back for the league season. All the respective clubs have their pre-season launches out of the road and, like us, are waiting for the kick-off tonight between the Rabbitohs and the Roosters. Rabbitohs captain Adam Muir has his team high on emotions in front of a sellout crowd, so much so that front rower Paul Stringer has a cruciate ligament injury and should be resting for at least a month, but just wants to be a part of this game. Now, the Roosters will start favourites. They've got a few new faces in the back line with Mullins, Hodges and Ryan Cross returning from injury. They'll do the job tonight, a big win from them. In other games this weekend, the clash between the Dragons and the Sharks. The Dragons have lost a lot of experienced players last year, and the end result is that they'll start with 3 rookies making their debut on Sunday. Sharks are in the same boat, having lost a lot of players, but Bortwell bringing Matthew Johns and Brett Camorley into the key roles. I think the Sharks will do the job there. In other games, Bulldogs take on the Tigers and are certainties to win their opening round game. Knights in a local derby with the Eagles. Despite the fact that the Eagles have beaten us twice last year and we haven't won a pre-season game, of course the Knights will win. Broncos to beat the Cowboys, the Storm over the Raiders in a close one. Eels to beat the Panthers, but I've got to say I think the Panthers will be big improvers this year. They won't be fighting for the wooden spoon like they did last year. Watch out for their 2 young wingers, Luke Lewis and Luke Rooney. Anyway, that's it from round 1. Good luck with your tips. Back to you.
Lake Macquarie's reputation as an aqua playground is in jeopardy, according to those who use the lake. Local tourist operators and the 3Rs Group, which stands for Recreational, Residents and Ratepayers, say Sydney yachties are sailing past the area and opting to drop anchor in Port Stephens and Port Macquarie instead. Their reason? The Swansea Channel is too shallow.
We're talking to the Boat Owners Association, and that's the problem with the channel. They won't come in because fear of being stuck.
The 3Rs Group today invited a representative from Tourism New South Wales to see the problem. They want the channel dredged and the excess sand sold.
The channel's a hazard to a yacht. A yacht hasn't got a large motor, and a yacht becomes stuck on the sandbank. It requires the yacht to be pulled over sideways, and people don't like their yachts to be pulled around by the mast.
Colin Brandsgrove agrees the area has plenty of potential for tourism and says he'll involve all government departments to work out a solution.
We're keen to see tourism continue to develop in the state, and I'm here today to listen, to learn, and certainly take that back to Sydney and see what we can do.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. The daily routine of slowly filling a wobber tip with tons of household waste could remarkably one day have an upside. Lake Macquarie Council has already commissioned a report on the viability of tapping methane gas, which is given off when the waste breaks down, and utilising it as an energy source.
Council's got an environmental responsibility to ensure that they do control this gas. Obviously, emitting it straight into the atmosphere is not the right thing to do.
The report concludes the idea has merit and council is further investigating its options of turning garbage into gas gold. The plan to capture methane gas from the tip mightn't be as far-fetched as it sounds. All around the world, research has led to other local governments utilising the resource.
The Melbourne site that I have visited myself is actually collecting the gas from the site, and it's being used as straight out electricity generation, and I believe that electricity that's generated is feeding into the grid for Victoria.
However, it'll be a couple of years before council decides on whether to tap the gas. Giving up teaching to pursue her new love of cycling full-time, Olivia Golan is now a pupil of the Australian Institute of Sport's road racing team. Her new classroom includes endless kilometres on the bike and time in the gym, and tomorrow it takes her to Italy for 7 months of competition and hopefully qualification for the World Championships.
To actually make it and to be competitive at an international level, you have to race in Europe.
While the Commonwealth Games team appears a long shot for Golan, she's preparing for longer-term goals in her stay overseas. From 2 wheels to 4 and a load more horsepower, the Super Sedan Series hits overdrive at Newcastle Speedway tomorrow night. It's the battle for the New South Wales title, and it's a real open field. A Queenslander actually holds the title, but drivers like Robert Carrick and John and Ron Pine lead a host of local drivers in with a chance. $10,000 is what Australian and some international stars of 10-pin bowling will be chasing at Mayfield at the weekend. In memory of Pat McNamara, the Mr Mac Classic will start early tomorrow morning with around 80 bowlers and conclude on Sunday with the final.
It's a really good sort of confidence boost. I mean, it proves if there's something you think you can't do and you try it, you realise you can, and camp offers that sort of opportunity a lot of the time.
Leighton Hewitt has little to fear from these guys.
We were disgraceful just then. We got beat 4-0, so I don't know. My mate's not going that well, never mind.
It was with football in hand that Denny Baderis was looking good against the Eagles.
Yeah, it was good to get the first one out of the way and come away. The body's a bit sore now, but we've got 26 more weeks of that.
It's all new to Anthony Quinn. He lobbed in to replace Adam McDougall and came away with a try on debut.
I couldn't take the smile off my face afterwards.
You know, was it pure speed to get past Mark Hughes, or did you say come and hang back?
No, I did tell him to hang back and let me have it.
He may yet get another week to shine, with Adam McDougall thought to be no certainty to return this weekend. Given the ease of Newcastle's first up win and the nature of their opponents this weekend, it's hard to see why either McDougall or Ben Kennedy would be risked against the Cowboys. But coach Michael Hagan says both will be given every chance to play. While the Knights continue to cut a bit of rust from their game, coach Michael Hagan can see a bit of work for the game's officials after the video referee ruled against John Morris's try after an earlier obstruction. Hagan has spoken to referees boss Peter Louis about the incident. Jim Callanan, NBN News. The temperature had reached 31 degrees by 10:30 this morning at the Lake Macquarie Rural Fire Service headquarters. Controllers monitoring the weather had 8 crews ready to roll as the humidity dropped and the wind strength increased outside.
We're experiencing probably the same as we did earlier in Christmas.
It's not uncommon to experience high temperatures in March. Firefighters are appealing to the public to report any outbreaks immediately as a total fire ban continues.
It means that people have to be aware that they don't have any fires, just open fires. They're allowed gas barbecues, but no open timber fires and no burn-offs. It's all ceased. Permits are ceased on days like this.
With a seawater temperature of 22 degrees, a dip at the beach was the ideal way to cool off. Warm weather is expected again tomorrow. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Lazy. Dog. Good boy. Well done. Everybody together, please.
The wheat brown fox jumps over lazy dog.
Right. Go into the next classroom with these little people here. I want you, see the chalkboards down there? Need pencils ready? Okay. To get this right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mama.
At today's announcement, Country Energy boss Craig Murray was quick to point out the factors involved in the demise of a country town.
That the sign of the sort of final demise of a small town is about 4 or 5 things. The last bank pulls out. In the past, our predecessor organisations have closed a depot and there is no more footy team.
Recognising the facts, the proud new sponsor didn't announce to what extent it's committed to the league. But the look on David Barnhill's face said it all.
In monetary terms, it's a 6-figure sum, but there's also some add-on incentives for our league to do well within the sponsorship.
And there's a good reason.
I mean, people out there really do it tough, and I think to get some teams together and play in this competition is absolutely important to them, and I think to the success of the towns they represent.
Sadly, today's message went ahead with a dark cloud hanging overhead, with off-field conduct once again sending out the wrong message about rugby league. Lakes United and a Central Coast club faced disciplinary action over an incident at Coffs Harbour last weekend. The news coming as great disappointment to the code.
It's a very difficult time for us to have this type of thing happen, because I've been in this job 11 years and it's the first time I've ever received an allegation of this nature, and the clubs will be given an opportunity tonight. There's been no decision made.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Some thought it was a bold move when Scone aged care provider Strathern Village decided to build the supermarket complex in the town's main street. 18 months after the doors opened, the development is sold to a Sydney investor.
The property sold for $5.9 million, and that allows us to retire any debt and meet any associated costs, and there's some funds left over that we can reinvest in Strathern Village.
The auction result itself has now become a talking point.
5.9 million or thereabouts was the price that it achieved. It outstripped our expectations, that's for sure, but I understand there was pretty good interest leading into it and it sold well.
Strathern Village now intends to focus its activities solely on aged care. Meantime, Muswellbrook Pool is set to become the Upper Hunter's next major construction site. After a 25-year wait, the town will get a multi-million-dollar heated indoor pool courtesy of a new coal development.
Mount Arthur Coal was required to enter into a legally binding agreement with the council to make a substantial contribution towards a community project, and that project has turned out to be the indoor heated pool.
Construction is expected to begin in June, with the 25-metre indoor heated pool open by next autumn. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Edgeworth had the home ground advantage at Jack McLaughlin Oval last night and wasted no time putting Cessnock under pressure. The Hornets weren't shy in front of goal either, but eventually it was determined follow-up work from the Eagles' Dave Franze, which beat an equally determined keeper. Franze later bagged a second, with Edgeworth winning 5-0. Earlier, Broadmeadow and Adamstown went head-to-head, with the Magic peppering their opponent's goal. Not all the shots were stopped, with the Rosebuds beaten 4-0 and Broadmeadow taking the lead in Group A. Meantime, Newcastle United's first round of player signings is complete, with Asala Massi agreeing to terms for another 2 seasons. The Fijian striker accepted a revised offer from the club ahead of a deadline last night. He's the last of the 6 off-contract players United wanted to retain. The club says it will now concentrate on the semis before 2 more names are added to the roster for next season. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Member for the Hunter, Mr Joel Fitzgibbon, has attempted to link the charging of 2 male nurses with Hunter Health's move out of aged care by privatising the home. The pair were acquitted of the charges in Cessnock Court last week. In a statement today, Hunter Health Chief Professor Catherine McGrath said any suggestion that Hunter Health had anything but the health and welfare of residents in mind is scurrilous and offensive. A spokesman for Health Minister Knowles said Catherine McGrath had taken entirely the right course of action. In what amounts to an attack by a federal Labor MP on his state Labor colleagues, Mr Fitzgibbon criticised Hunter Health for planning to sell the Allendale aged care facility to Catholic group The Little Company of Mary. The sale would save Hunter Health $3 million a year.
Cowboy team members boarded a bus this afternoon ready to take on the Newcastle Knights. Among them, a bruised and battered media manager, Tim Nugent, who together with football manager Peter Parr, seen here when he was the development officer with the Brisbane Broncos, were victims of a bashing in Newcastle overnight. Mr Parr was so badly hurt he was rushed to John Hunter Hospital, where he's in a satisfactory condition tonight, despite having suffered fractures to his face. Mr Nugent says the pair left the Great Northern Hotel in central Newcastle at around 1:30 this morning after watching the Broncos-Bulldogs match. While walking through nearby Pacific Park en route to the Holiday Inn, they came across a number of youths who were harassing 2 young women and attempted to intervene. It was then the men were attacked. Police are seeking assistance from anyone who may have witnessed what happened. Cullen Robinson, NBN News. This summer was considered to be the worst season for bushfires in more than 20 years, and today in Cessnock many of those who gave up their Christmas to battle blazes were recognised. Rural Fire Service crews from across the Lower Hunter, National Parks and Wildlife, State Forests and the State Emergency Service were among those rewarded with plaques. One organisation thrilled to receive recognition was the State Volunteer Rescue Association. It doesn't campaign on the front line, but instead provides meals for firefighters.
We don't take the active role of fighting fires, we only that assistant role, and that's the role we play.
Today was also as much about families as it was awards. The bushfires lasted for 23 days over the Christmas break, and many celebrations were cut short as mums and dads left to fight the fires.
It's the least we can do is to organise a day of recognition like this today for the families and the firefighters and all others involved in the emergency.
Similar tributes will be held in Armidale and Coffs Harbour tomorrow.
The Mire Lakes have been at the centre of a dispute between campers and the National Parks and Wildlife Service since January 2000. The death of a camper who was struck by a falling tree branch raised concerns over the safety of melaleuca trees on the water's edge. Following a risk assessment, National Parks has announced further camping restrictions in time for Easter.
There'll be limited areas, there'll be no absolute waterfront campsites anymore, and this is because of the paperbuck trees are only in a small fringe area on the edge of the lake, and to have lakeside camping it would mean removing all of the trees.
Anne-Marie Barry admits it's taken some wind out of the sails of those planning to use the national park. While the decision to ban lakeside camping has come as a major setback, the Mole Lakes National Park Access and Action Group says the fight's not over yet. Disappointments aside, the group says if water's edge camping remains a thing of the past, people have to look further when placing blame.
So unfortunately, litigation rules. It's an attitude of who can I sue, not be responsible for your own actions, and I think that's a shame, and this is just the beginning. It's going to get a lot worse for everybody concerned.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Yeah, it's a big problem at the moment, you know. Oh, it usually is every year, but pretty bad this year.
The hottest trend of dealing with young people that may go into the criminal justice system is to create gathering places that are safe, productive, and that have young people as managers, as entrepreneurs, and being able eventually to earn a living from skills they've learned.
Speed, agility and power were the order of the day at training this morning. But for some nights, a rest was a safer option. Ball work for Sean Rudder and Josh Perry was done with a cricket bat, while Robbie O'Davis took a break and Tamana Tahu was absent with the flu.
He just needs a day or so to recover, and we don't want to subject him to something now if it means him getting better before now on the weekend.
Perry, meanwhile, is particularly keen not to let a troublesome knee stand between him and a formidable Warriors lineup.
Staying off it all week till probably tomorrow or Sunday, and I'm positive it'll be right for Monday for sure.
A big opposing pack isn't the only thing the Knights have to face up to this weekend. The trip away features some early departure times that look equally daunting.
We live in Energy Australia Stadium about 5:30 on Saturday morning, and I think we leave over in Auckland on 4 o'clock. I think it's 4 o'clock on Tuesday morning, so yeah, it'd be tough.
How does that sit with the boys?
Not too good, actually.
All right, mate. Back in the swim of things after the recent Australian titles, Yvette Roddier and Heidi Crawford will certainly spend plenty of time in the pool this year. Roddier's second in the 400 IM saw her qualify for both the first Pan-Pacific Championships and Commonwealth Games, where she'll renew her rivalry with first-place getter Jennifer Riley.
She's ranked #1 in the Commonwealth, so in the training camps leading up to it I might be able to get some tips off her maybe, that'd be good.
The Pan Packs, meanwhile, present a different challenge, with Roddier reaching a personal milestone midway through the August Championships.
Yeah, I turned 21 right in the middle of the meet, so I'll still have racing to do, so I won't be able to celebrate till I get home.
Hunter clubmate Heidi Crawford, at least, will be on hand to help plan a late party. The 20-year-old made her first Australian senior team at the Nationals and only missed Commonwealth selection by the Sarah Ryan fingernail-sized gap of 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, I really should have grown my fingernails for that one, but not to worry, I'm going to concentrate on Pan Packs and hopefully get in that world record breaking relay team.
For now, though, the pair will concentrate on their next event, a swimathon to raise money for the Hunter swim team next Friday. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
This time last year, few people gave the Newcastle forward pack a second look, but after a season of head-turning performances, the Knights are heralded amongst the best.
Surprised when a grand final win does for you, but no, we always thought there was nothing wrong with our forward pack, and we're always trying to be tough in that, and yeah, we're starting to prove it now.
Perry and Matt Parsons have been outstanding in Newcastle's first two matches, but no, the real test is this weekend.
Sort of clocked off there for a while against the Cowboys and the Eagles, and there's no chance for us that we can at all clock off over in New Zealand.
It's not just the size of the Warriors that is the problem, it's the ability that comes with them that worries Newcastle. The game may well be won or lost in the opening exchanges.
And start the game well, I think you can't afford them to get away on you too quickly in the game, so if we can stay with them I'd be happy.
The team leaves tomorrow morning and will play at 1 o'clock our time on Monday afternoon. All the action live on NBN.
It's an Easter tradition for sailors from Lake Macquarie Yacht Club to race from Swansea to Newcastle Harbour. Even back in 1963, little excuse was needed to make the exciting but relatively short northward-bound trip to Newcastle. However, back then and up until this year, there hasn't been any moorings or facilities for yachties. But when the yacht sailed up the harbour this afternoon, they knew that at the end of their journey, they'd have a place to berth.
It's a long overdue facility and we're really excited. We're the first yacht club to come and visit the site and tie up at the marina, and we're very excited about that.
And the fact that all of the Newcastle's Cruising Yacht Club's facilities will be completed soon.
But now it's all happening. All the approvals are in place, the work's in place, the concrete's on the ground, the marinas are in the water, or some of them, there's a few more to go yet, but plenty of accommodation for the boats.
And for those who sailed them there. However, after fighting heavy rain for much of the trip up the coast, not everyone was that keen to spend the night on their craft.
In theory, yes, but in practice we might go home to our warm, dry beds.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Lakes United copped headlines for all the wrong reasons after their semi-final win against Burnley at Coffs Harbour. It's football the Seagulls want to highlight tomorrow.
Got blown out of proportion a fair bit, but it's behind us now and the boys are real keen.
Up against their Tweed Heads namesakes, the Seagulls have done their homework on a team that was expecting to play in the Queensland State League. However, it's how they handle the plane trip on game day that may provide the biggest hurdle.
It's going to be tough flying up there, but it'll test the boys' character, see how good we are as a side and how we mould as a team too.
Injury hasn't helped Tweed Heads' preparation, but a side that boasts experienced NRL players like Mark Fitzgerald, Marty Stone and Chris Flint will be hard to stop.
We have the variation now to be able to attack both left and right, and so that's going to put obviously the opposition in 2 frames of mind, which way we're going to come.
Lakes will host the grand final if they win tomorrow. It would be their first home game of the competition.
That'd be the ultimate now. Like, everything's out of the road and we've talked about that quietly, but we just got to concentrate on Saturday night up there at Tweed and hopefully we come away with the Vickies.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Not the greatest of ways to spend your last session before the club's biggest game. The words of Wolves skipper Stu Young, though, would have warmed United's spirits. He believes Newcastle will go all the way.
To be perfectly honest, they've impressed me more than Perth have. Just the fact that they are so well organised, it just lends itself to you thinking that they've got the full package.
But he knows only too well to win overall, United must finish in second spot.
I think they're going to be finishing first and second, and as we've shown in the last couple of years, getting in that top 2 is paramount to your chances of overall success.
It's well documented Newcastle need only to win this weekend to secure that all-important top 2 berth. So much so, the only problem tomorrow against Sydney United may be in the head rather than on the park.
I think the biggest challenge that we face is us being right mentally.
Defenders Andy Roberts and Chris Zoricic are back in, returning Newcastle to its most consistent lineup of the season. Michael Prentice slips back to the Youth League.
Whatever happens, we're going to have that for at least two playoff games. Let's hope more. So yeah, we need to get our mindset right.
It's been a week of contrast for David Violecki. After a freakish start to the season with a 3-try effort in round 1, he was shortened up in round 2 by a Terry Hill tackle. His head was buried into the ground by 6 or 8 inches up to his ears. And I'll tell you what, he nearly went through to China. Thankfully, x-rays have cleared him from any serious injury and he can sit out this week as Parramatta are having the bye. Also on that game, Terry Hill had an unusual experience, suffering a bout of delayed concussion after a big hit on a Parramatta player. As you can see, Tessa stood up, had something to say, but then went down for the count. He came to in dramatic style also. The commentators weren't quite sure whether it was a G-up or not, and to his credit, Hill went on to play an outstanding game. What about this for the tackle of the week? Josh Hannay absolutely drilled Robbie O'Davis in last week's clash between the Cowboys and the Knights. And also in that game, I thought the skill level in patches by the Knights were unbelievable. They certainly have blown away any cobwebs that may have been left over from their average trial match form. There was even some comedy as Ben Kennedy and Joey Johns added a bit of humour to the day with their reenactment of their now famous argument a few weeks ago. Good on you, boys. Now to the tips, and tonight's clash between the Roosters and the Broncos is a tough one to pick. I'm going to go for the Broncos there. Storm over the Cowboys, Rabbitohs to beat the Eagles, and other winners should be the Sharks, Bulldogs, Tigers and the Knights. Good luck with your tips. See you next week.
Matthew Helm doesn't make it home all that often these days, but when he does, it's always with a swag of medals. 3 national titles this time and the crown as Australia's best male diver.
It was a big shock, but I'm very honoured.
His best ever result at a national meet was highlighted with a record points haul in the 10-metre platform, where he became the first Aussie to break the 700-point barrier.
Definitely a top 3 performance in any international competition, so hopefully going into Commonwealth Games and World Cup later on this year puts me in with a good chance of getting a top 3 performance.
With Manchester fast approaching, it's the sort of form that has him favoured for a podium finish.
I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself though. I'm just going to go in there, just do my best, which is all I can do, and hopefully bring out a couple of medals.
In fact, the whole squad is tipped to do that, with the present Australian team thought to be one of the best ever.
And we usually sit down and see how many medals I think we can get, but just judging by the team that we've got, hopefully, we can all get a medal.
Matthew returns to his Brisbane training base tomorrow with meets in Europe and America to round out his preparation for the Games. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The weekend crackdown comes amid claims violent crime and antisocial behaviour is spiralling out of control in Newcastle's popular party strip. It's 10 p.m. Saturday, and when police reach Nobby's, the brawl breaks up. Soon after, this girl becomes the latest of 3 people near King Street to be allegedly assaulted and have their bags snatched in the space of an hour. Police later arrested 3 teenage girls. An hour on, officers rushed to where a group of young men have allegedly been terrorised by a man wielding a knife.
He was going berserk, he was just screaming and just looked like a total freak. I don't know what was wrong with him.
Police later charged a man. At midnight, 26 officers assembled to target a random selection of 12 licensed premises in Newcastle and Hamilton. A trained drug sniffer dog called Morse leads the way. Over the past month, police have conducted 44 such surprise inspections.
If people see a lot of police around, it does affect their behaviour.
56 people have so far been charged. In cases where pub-goers were found carrying small amounts of cannabis, they're let off with a caution. The blitz was organised before the much publicised bashing of Cowboys manager Peter Parr last weekend, which drew attention to police numbers.
We need people to know that despite recent events, there are plenty of police around, and quite simply, the CBD should be a place that you can come and feel safe.
Operation Commander Inspector Wayne Humphrey says he's seen no evidence of so-called predatory gangs, but regular users move on legislation to break up groups of young people. While admitting the number of alcohol-related assaults is up, he said officers are more determined than ever to wipe out crime in Newcastle's entertainment precinct. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The marriage between surfing and still photography is one made in heaven. There's not too many sports like it that in a split second can capture a moment of pure intensity or grace. But that's what's on show at the View Factory in Newcastle until the end of Surf Fest on the 14th of April. Launched today, the exhibition is the fourth and final series that has recorded the changing face of surfing in Newcastle.
We've documented now from 1958 to the year 2000. Next year, the whole lot will be on show, and then we'll be presenting it to Newcastle City Council. Hopefully it'll be housed somewhere in a museum of some sort, a maritime or surfing museum.
This year's series of photographs, titled The 90s Airtime, focuses on the modern era of surfing and shows off some of the city's best and brightest talents.
Surfing is a main part of the culture of Newcastle and the lifestyle, and it's something that people are starting to find out about Newcastle, and that's why they want to move here.
Meantime, final preparations were being put to the grandstand overlooking Newcastle Beach today, while some surfers paddled out to enjoy the waves before the real pros arrive. Surffest starts tomorrow with the Indigenous Classic. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
More than a year after completing his round-the-world voyage, Lake Macquarie yachtsman Tony Mowbray is out doing what he says is unfinished business on the water. Tony has been sailing non-stop around the lake since Saturday in a 7-day fundraising exercise for the John Hunter Children's Hospital.
We're looking to buy specialised equipment to monitor the preemie babies' conditions in those vital early days, and these machines are worth $18,000 each.
Equipment the hospital desperately needs to upgrade to ensure the survival of premature babies.
In an intensive care environment, they're vitally important, and we certainly can't function without them.
The week is also a chance for the public to get some hands-on experience at the helm.
For a fee, they can come out on the boat, have a 4-hour sail, an 8-hour sail, overnight or whatever, and all of that money goes to the Children's Hospital.
And that's just what John Hennessy has done. John recently bought a boat of his own, and he's made the most of an opportunity to grab some sailing lessons and help a worthy cause.
I've got 3 kids of my own, and ours were all quite healthy and quite okay kids, so we had no problems, but I do know of other people that have had problems with preemie babies, and I don't mind supporting this cause, it's good.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Removal of Maitland's remaining bushland has become a thorny subject. Entering the debate, Green Hills residents who have discovered part of the 1 Mile Creek Reserve could be used for a new East Maitland library.
The residents are very angry, very disbelieving.
Maitland Council plans to close the existing East Maitland facility and replace it with a $1.5 million purpose-built library. However, these Green Hills residents want their park more than a new library.
It's a barrier from the noise and the traffic, and it's just beautiful to look at. I mean, everyone in this street just loves their park, and that's why they live here.
This is one of 7 sites to be considered as a possible location for the new East Maitland Library. While no decision has been made, it is understood to be the favoured site, and Council is conscious of the environmental concerns. Maitland Council says the Green Hills Reserve isn't the only open space under consideration.
A number of the potential sites are located on existing open space in the Green Hills locality, but we see an opportunity to provide a facility where the users are in some degree of context with that open space.
Gary Blair, NBN News.